Jimmy Butler, he's a very interesting player to me.
He's like, oh, shoot, I don't know where to go with the ball because I haven't been able to think.
It was a great series. Game 4 was one of the best games I've ever watched in my entire life. Now LeBron's a 4-time champion, and Anthony Davis gets his first.
It's unacceptable. So happy when the Astros lost because it would definitely be a 2020 thing.
Yeah, I was impressed by their game. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Nikita Kucherov, that was the best line in the playoffs, no doubt.
Stay undefeated when they face the mighty Cowboys with Garrett Gilbert.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared Sandler, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL opinions of the week. You know, it's still top 10s. It's still the off season, but this is, we are a pro offensive line podcast, and this is what made this top 10 so difficult because we love some offensive linemen, but there are only 10 spots. Now, the man that I'm sure shared the same trouble as I did, Austin.
Tough list, Kevin. Very tough. There's a lot of players I went into got there, and I was like, I can't put this guy, even though I really, really, really want to. I'm excited for this upcoming season for a lot of reasons, and I think both of our teams should have a great O-line this year. And it starts with some of the guys that are on these lists. I wish there was better stats to show how good certain offensive linemen are, because there is no one set way to view it. But an offensive line, I think, is the most important position group besides quarterback on the entire team, Kevin, and I think you would agree.
Yeah, I agree. And it can really help elevate your quarterback. We've seen what a bad offensive line has done for quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, and when they have good offensive lines. You can see that. You can even see it with Patrick Mahomes, which we've talked about in videos too. So yeah, there's going to get much love, and yeah, I'm excited to get into this. I'll let you start your 10 with your 10.
So my number 10, I said we will have, at least I will have someone from each of our favorite teams in our top 10. And I'm starting with Rasheed Walker. Rasheed Walker started left tackle last year for the Packers, had an AV of 10. It was his second season, first year as a starter, and he's just getting into his groove. He started 15 games, played in all 17 games, and had an approximate value of 10. Again, there's not many stats I can bring to the table. He played 80% of snaps during the season and was just dominant. He was a big reason why our O-line was as good as it was. And it being his first year as a starter, I think next year he'll be even better. So my number 10 is Rasheed Walker.
Yeah, I sadly do not have a Packers player, even though I do think they have a great offensive line and it's growing. I went with some established guys. And yeah, this is tough with stats, but I'm going to go. My number 10 is Lane Johnson, the right tackle for the Eagles. He is a great tackle, and he's a guy that's battled through injury, and there are stats that show when he's out of lineup, that really hurts the Eagles. So he's just been an anchor at the tackle spot, and he fought through injury 2 years ago, I believe, on their way to the Super Bowl, but you can really see his effect in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, Lane Johnson did not make my list for the plain reason that I believe that availability is extremely important, and I am every year, I think, not just the Eagles, but I am worried that he's not going to be playing as consistently as you want. He did play 16 games this past year, 15 the year before that, but we also know that there was a 3-year stretch where he only played about 2/3 of the games he could have played in. And I do think that losing a guy like Jason Kelce hurts the rest of the offensive line because of how good he is. So I think Lane Johnson is good, but he sadly did not make my list. But who's your number 9?
My number 9 is Quentin Nelson. I know he was higher on my list last year, but he has kind of struggled recently. He was arguably one of the best guards earlier in his career, but he struggled as long as the Colts have. So that's why he's at 9 for me.
Okay. My number 9 is a player that I do think is a little bit underrated, but because he plays on now a really good team, he won't be for a while. He's made Pro Bowls 3 times in his career, and that's Frank Ragnow. Ragnow's been with the Lions his entire career. He just had his best approximate value of his career with 11. He had made the All-Pro second team, was a Pro Bowler, like I said, and he's really, really good. He plays center for the team, and I do think center is an extremely important position on the offensive line. I have a multitude of centers on this list, and I think that Frank Ragnow is probably the second best offensive lineman on the Lions, which gives you a hint of I will have another Lions player on my list.
Yeah, I have 2 Lions players as well. I do have Frank Ragnow, but he's a little bit more up. I wanted to give him. He's a guy that's just been doing it consistently, so I wanted to give him a little bit more love. But I understand it. So who is your 8?
So my 8 is a player that has played on a multitude of elite teams, and it's Joe Thuney. Joe Thuney made his second Pro Bowl last year, his first All-Pro first team. He obviously had made an All-Pro second team back with New England in 2019, so he's played with both Mahomes and Brady, and that is it. Definitely helps when you're playing very important football, and he's a very solid, good left guard for the Kansas City Chiefs. When he's hurt, it really does hurt the team, and I do think that his availability is important, especially this year as they look to three-peat.
Yeah, he is my number 8 as well. He was brought over in that big upgrade of the offensive line after the Buccaneers loss and where the Chiefs just struggled. He was the big implement with the Chiefs offensive line as well as other offensive linemen. But yeah, so Joe Thuney is my 8 as well.
I'll go into my number 7, back-to-back Chiefs players, and I do think he is the best Chiefs offensive lineman. It's Creed Humphrey. He is another center on my list. He was third in Rookie of the Year voting, Offensive Rookie of the Year voting his rookie year, which is crazy from a center. The past 2 years, he's been Pro Bowl, and he was All-Pro second team, not this past year, but the year before that. And I think he'll be really good this year. The relationship between a quarterback and your center, it is extremely important. And I think Mahomes and Creed Humphrey have a very good one.
Yeah, Creed Humphrey is on my list. He's a little bit higher, though. My 7 is Laramie Tunsil. He has just been on this. He's been a great left tackle for so long, and he's just been dependable. And I think he's a great guy, and he's done very well in his transition with the Texans, and he's built a building block for that offensive line.
I do not have Laramie Tunsil on my list. I'm worried about his play this upcoming year. I think that he's kind of had recurring and nagging injuries, but we'll see how he plays this year. This is again a tough list. There's a plethora of elite offensive linemen. Usually one per team is good at least.
Yes, and it seems like we're having very different lists, which is also good because there are just so many great offensive linemen. I'll go into my 6. This I'm sure you guys have higher than me, but Penei Sewell. He is a great right tackle. He has fit in well and has really helped solidify that offensive line. We talked about offensive lines. The Lions did that when he fell to them after the Bengals did not do it. And he's really helped build that offensive line to help Jared Goff.
Yeah, I do have him significantly higher than you, but I'm glad that we both have him on our list. So that's a good guy to have. He was your 6, correct?
Yes, he was my 6.
My 6 is a guy who's made a Pro Bowl his last 6 years, made a All-Pro team 5 in the last 6, and it's Joel Bitonio. Bitonio is, I think, the best offensive lineman on the Browns. He did have a little bit of a down year last year, but a down year still made the Pro Bowl, still helped the Cleveland Browns make the playoffs. He's extremely, extremely good. And he doesn't get injured. He's played 15 or more games every year since 2016. And availability, I think, is extremely important. Again, 6 straight Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pro teams, 2 All-Pro first teams, which came not this past year, but the 2 years before that. I do think he's a top 10 offensive lineman. And while he did have a little bit of a down year last year, I think this year he returns to form.
Yeah, he sadly did not make my list, but he was in consideration.
Yeah. Okay. I do get a little bit confused about your criteria sometimes because you do say that like they're established, right? But this guy's made 6 straight Pro Bowls, so I don't know how he's not established. But I'll let you do you.
Yeah, I know they're always gonna be tough cuts, and yeah. My number 5 is a guy that I'm not really familiar with, but he did kind of pop up and he's had some high ratings, and he made second team All-Pro this year at right guard. Chris Lindstrom from Atlanta.
Yeah, Lindstrom was a tough cut for me. I did not have Lindstrom on my list, mainly because I haven't seen him do it he's done it for the past 2 years, being All-Pro second team, but I don't think he is that upper echelon of lineman. I think my top 6, really, everyone Batonio and above, I do think is just utterly elite at their position. And while Christian Lindstrom is very, very good, I don't think he's necessarily the best at his position. So I would have him in my top 15 probably, but I do not have him in my top 10.
Got it. Now I'll just go into my number 4. It's a guy you already mentioned, Frank Ragnow. He started getting credit, like even announcers were talking about him during the game, and I think he's done incredible. And he helps anchor that center position for the Lions, and he's been there for, I think he's one of the longest tenured Lions on that team.
Yeah, I believe he may be the longest tenured Lion on the team. But I'll go over my 5, so I still have to go over my 5 and 4.
My bad.
No, it's all good. My number 5 is a player that has won a Super Bowl. He did not make a All-Pro team last year, but he did make a Pro Bowl. In his last 3 years, he's made a Pro Bowl, and he should have made a Pro Bowl his rookie year, and that's Tristan Wirfs. Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa, 3 Pro Bowls already in his 4-year career. He's just he's a statue over there. You can't get through him. He's a brick wall. And I don't think that can be understated with how important he is to this Tampa Bay team at right tackle. And I don't really have much to say. He's only 24 or just turned 25, so this is his age 25 season, and he's already had a significantly impactful career. So he's my number 5. My number 4 is I do think the best Bills offensive lineman. That's Deion Dawkins. Deion Dawkins has made a Pro Bowl the last 3 years. He's been really close to Pro Bowls other years, and he's one of the longest tenured Bills. Him and Josh Allen, I think, both were in the same rookie class, so that they really hit with Josh Allen and then Deion Dawkins both in 2017. So Deion Dawkins, I think, will have a big year this year. So another, again, tackle that I do think is extremely impactful to their team.
Yeah, both are great tackles, and they're always going to be tough cuts, as they both didn't make my list, but it's personal preference too for some of these guys, just because they are going to be guys. These basically are 2 offensive line, and there are so many great players. So I'll let you go into your 3.
My 3 is Zach Martin. I'd want to have him higher if I knew that we were going to get 17 games as a Zach Martin, but that's never a guarantee. But even when he doesn't play 17 games, he is one of the best offensive linemen of all time. He's 126 approximate value over his entire career, which spans from 2014 to 2023 thus far, and he'll obviously play in 2024. So he's played 10 years. He's averaging almost 13 approximate value per year, and he's been a Pro Bowl every year except for 1 year, and that year he only played 10 games. I don't really have much to say. He's just remarkable.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's the best guard. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit about him in a sec. My 3 is Creed Humphrey. I just felt like having centers higher. It's kind of a coin flip to me between Frank Ragnow and Creed Humphrey, but Creed Humphrey is just anchored down that center position for the Chiefs, and has really helped them go on to go far in the playoffs in his entire career.
Yeah, it's a good guy to have. Who's your 2?
My 2 is Trent Williams. Trent Williams, to me, he plays so well. He could have fought for number 1, because I'm just a little bit worried about his age going into next year, but he's just done such a great job. He did well when he was with Washington, and then with the Niners, he's continued to play well even as he continues to get old.
Yeah, Trent Williams is a good guy to have. My number 2 is Penei Sewell. I told you I was going to have him significantly higher. He had one of the highest approximate values for a lineman last year, was 17. He's just a remarkable player. A player that you and I both believe that the the Bengals could have used a couple years back. My number one, though, is Trent Williams. He and Penei Sewell had the highest, I believe, approximate value. He also had a 17 approximate value. I'm not worried about his age. He'll miss a couple games during the year. He hasn't played 16 or 17 games since 2013, but he's also played 10 or more every year. So I'm not worried about his health too much. He has a little bit bumps and bruises, but he hasn't missed a playoff game, or at least not many of them. And when you need a stop, or you need to block the best guy on another team, I wouldn't want to have anyone else.
Yeah, my number one is Zach Martin, and he's just incredible. I love what he does. He's doesn't really get talked about much, and none of these guys get really talked about much just because they're that good. So with Zach Martin, I think he's only missed. He hasn't. He's only. I think he missed one game this year, but
Two.
and then you mentioned or two. Okay, two. Maybe that was week 17.
He
Or
played
no, I guess
15 games last year,
Okay, he
which
played
is
15 games.
2 misses.
Yeah, he missed two. I know there's one with injury. I'm trying to think if there were two. I can't really remember about that. But he's been an All-Pro 6 out of the last 7 years. So he just to me is consistent as well as Trent Williams and personal preference. But
What I
so,
will say about both
yeah.
of them is both of them have played exactly 58 games over the last 4 years. So even with a little bit of injury troubles that either of them have had, they both played 58 games, which is fine. I think Troy
Yeah.
Williams also missed one game with injury and then also did not play in week 17. I think that
Yeah.
happened for probably both of those players. So again, I'm not truly worried about injuries with either guy. I do think that maybe they will affect, like I said, with they'll miss a game or two. That usually always happens, but you don't have to worry about them being out for a long extended period of time. And then come playoff time, they're rocks.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Tough list. Let us know what you think, and I'm sure there are guys we left out. I left guys out from your list, and I'm sure there are some people that we haven't talked about. But yeah, that's all we got. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you listening, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you're staying up to date on our socials, as that posts videos and links, and react to us there. We appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.